Humility is determined by how you view yourself in relation to something else. So if I'm in the presence of a bunch of 5-year-olds and we're talking about math, I don't have a ton of humility in that situation because of my position mentally versus theirs.
Yeah.
But if I'm in the presence of John Lennox, a mathematician at Cambridge or Oxford, I can't remember which one, I have a lot of humility because I'm just a complete child in front of him. And so if humility comes from your position in relation to someone else, then ultimate humility comes from knowing your position in relation to God. If I look out at the sun during the day, I might look at it and think, well, it's big, but it's not that big. But the closer I get to the sun, my position becomes very obvious. I'm very small. And you can imagine as you get closer and closer to the sun, and I'm not intending this to be a pun, but it's like the most perfect analogy ever, right? The closer you get to the sun, the more you realize how small you are. You realize who you are. And humility just happens to you. You don't even have to work for it. You're just standing there in the presence of Jesus, completely humbled by how grand and amazing and magnificent he is. And then he can give you that grace. So if you want more humility, get close to the sun. If you want more grace, get more humility. If you want more humility, just get closer to the sun and you'll find out who you are and the humility will just come, you know. I remember I was at a worship conference and Phil Wickham, this was back before Phil Wickham had any hits. He came out and he did a small group with us. And we were talking about songwriting in the church and leading worship. And he said something that I've repeated to so many people on my worship team and so many people, period. Someone asked him from the crowd, they said, Phil, what is it? No, they said, Phil, how do you stay so humble on stage all the time? And Phil Wickham said, you know, I don't even know like what you're talking about, essentially. I'm going to back up because I don't want to do Phil injustice. Their specific question was more like, Phil, when people compliment you at the end of your service, how do you handle that? Like, what do you do to stay humble? And how do you deal with all that? And he goes, man, if there's any place in your heart where you even begin to think that you could be prideful about being up there, then you're already doing it wrong. He's like, there's literally no reason for me to even be prideful. He said it so beautifully. He said, I know that I'm up here just serving the King, and so I have nothing to be prideful about. So I don't have to keep myself humble. Because there's nothing, I'm not doing anything. I'm just leading worship. And he said, in regards to the people who come up and say thank you, or that was so amazing, or you're so awesome, he said, just say thank you. Don't be like, oh, brother, to God be the glory, it's not me. He's like, you have to understand what they're trying to say. You are up there and you are singing songs to Jesus and they felt connected to God and they felt like he touched them and they just don't know how to express that. So they came up to you and said thank you because you were the conduit through which they felt like they connected with God. And for you to say thank you is not prideful if you know your place, which he was saying you should. It's like a given. There's no pride to be had. And so I thought that was so beautiful, and I've tried to hold to that. Anytime someone tells me any compliment of any kind, like, thank you, that was a great message you gave at the kids camp, or thanks, that was awesome worship. I'm just like, thank you. I really appreciate that. Because the biggest ministry I can do to that person who's thanking me is to just receive it. The last thing they need is for someone to be like, no, you said it wrong. Don't thank me, thank Jesus. It's like, man, that's so backwards from how Christ would behave, I can't imagine Jesus, after the Sermon on the Mount, right? His greatest sermon, and everyone's like, Jesus, fantastic sermon. Now he was God, so he could receive the praise, but there's no way he's sitting there like, well, now technically I'm the son, right? You understand this. So praise should technically be directed toward the Father. And everyone's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to, you don't want people to feel like they offended you. And so all that to say, Humility just comes from being close to Jesus. And when you're close to Jesus, it doesn't matter how great the work is that you do for him. You still realize that it's absolutely worthless without him. So there's just nothing to be prideful about at all. And that's comforting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I was saying, we had this conversation a while back, and you were helping me just like, what are the foundations of humility? And I wrote down 2 things. It was first, recognizing your place in relationship to where God is. But secondly, removing fear of man. I felt like that was a big one for me. If maybe the place of a lot of my pride was coming from, what will people think of me? Will they agree? Will they disagree? Will they, I guess it just bottom line, what will they think of me, when I say this or do this, And God is like, you have to remove that, because say they honor you, then you're so happy and you're in a good mood and you're so proud about what you said. And I said my wise little tidbit and that was just amazing, And say they disagree with you, or you're rebuked, or someone says, no, you said that wrong, or that wasn't correct. And all of a sudden you're just crushed. Yeah. And God is like, why? Why are you seeking the honor of men more than the honor of me? Why don't you just let me speak through you when I want to, and do the things that I want to do? And there can be no pride in that, And so the focus is shifting off of, what can I say? What can I do? How can I act to receive the praise of man? And that will make me very proud of what I just did, But instead, why don't you focus on learning who I am, remembering your place before me, and seeking to be filled with my Holy Spirit, so that everything coming out of you, it's impossible for you to take the glory of, because it wasn't you, it was me speaking, And those 2 things are really special for me to hold on to, because like you said, it's so hard to be like, how do I just be more humble? And then you think about trying to be humble, and that's prideful in its very nature, know? And it just feels like this impossible cycle. And so it was very special for me when God just broke it down so easy. For me, humility comes from, don't fear man and don't seek their approval. And secondly, always, always remember your relationship to me. And like you said, if you keep growing closer, you cannot help but be humbled over and over again, because you will start to realize who you are compared to who he is.